Dark clouds loomed over the burning skyline of Fort Haven, the last known human stronghold. Fires raged along the outer perimeter, the heavy thudding of artillery mixing with the unholy screeches of the undead. The city's defenders, tired, wounded, and desperate, fought with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. Commander Ethan Graves stood atop the crumbling wall, gripping his rifle as he surveyed the approaching tide of undead. Tens of thousands of them, relentless, never stopping. The barricades wouldn't hold for much longer. He turned to his squad, their faces weary yet determined. "Fall back to the bunker," he ordered. "We're evacuating." Lisa Rayner, his best sniper, hesitated. "Ethan, if we fall back, we lose the city." Ethan clenched his jaw. "We've already lost it." Down in the underground lab, Dr. Helen Carter frantically typed on her terminal, transferring data onto a single hard drive, humanity's last hope. The undead were already inside the building, clawing at the steel doors. She turned as Ethan burst in. "Take this," she gasped, handing him the hard drive. "Get it to the northern outpost. It's not finished, but it's our only chance." The sound of metal tearing sent a chill through the room. The doors caved in, and the dead poured inside. Ethan grabbed Helen's arm, but she shook her head. "Go!" she shouted. The last thing Ethan saw before escaping through the service tunnels was Dr. Carter, raising a pistol, standing defiant against the approaching horde. Above ground, the city fell into chaos. Explosions rocked the streets. Ethan's group raced through the ruins, dodging the undead as they swarmed in from every direction. The walls of Fort Haven collapsed, burying the last hope of the stronghold. With one final look at the burning city, Ethan clenched the hard drive in his hand. The fight wasn't over. Humanity had one last chance, but only if they survived long enough to use it. The ruins of Fort Haven burned behind them, casting an eerie glow against the night sky. Smoke and ash choked the air as Ethan Graves and his team pushed forward, leaving behind the last city of mankind. They had survived the fall, but only barely. Now, the real fight began. The wasteland stretched endlessly before them, a desolate graveyard of rusted cars, shattered buildings, and skeletal remains. It had been a thriving civilization once. Now, it was nothing more than a hunting ground for the dead. Ethan led the way, gripping his rifle tightly. Lisa Rayner, their sharpshooter, moved silently beside him, scanning the distant shadows. Derek Cole, a rough-edged survivalist, checked their dwindling supplies, while Zoe Mitchell, the teenage hacker, walked with her head down, her fingers nervously tapping on her tablet. The hard drive with the cure's data was strapped securely to Ethan's chest. They had to get it to the northern outpost. If they failed, humanity was finished. Nowhere left to hide. The group reached an overturned highway bridge and took a moment to catch their breath. "We need a vehicle," Lisa muttered, scanning the road below. "We won't make it on foot." Derek exhaled sharply. "Yeah, and we need food, water, and ammo. Got any of that lying around, sniper?" Lisa shot him a glare, but before she could respond, a distant howl echoed through the night. It was a sound none of them had ever heard before, high-pitched, unnatural, like a cross between a scream and a growl. Zoe tensed. "What the hell was that?" Ethan's grip on his weapon tightened. "Move! Now!" They scrambled down the side of the bridge, using the wreckage as cover. The city was behind them, but the undead weren't far. And something else was out there. Something worse. The hunter in the dark. As they navigated through an abandoned gas station, Ethan stopped abruptly. Footprints. Fresh. Lisa crouched beside them, her fingers brushing the dirt. Not human. The prints were elongated, clawed, almost reptilian. And they weren't alone. Zoe shuddered. "You're saying there's something other than zombies out here?" Before anyone could answer, the howling came again, closer this time. Then silence. The group froze. A low, guttural snarl emerged from the shadows of a collapsed diner. Then it stepped into view. It had once been human, but not anymore. Its limbs were stretched unnaturally long, its flesh a sickly gray with pulsing black veins. Its mouth, filled with jagged teeth, twitched as if trying to remember how to speak. But the worst part? Its eyes, still human, still aware, filled with a hunger beyond anything they had seen before. The mutated zombie locked its gaze on them. Then it charged. The chase. "Run!" Ethan barked, shoving Zoe forward as the creature lunged. Derek fired his shotgun, the blast tearing into the monster's chest, but it barely staggered. It was faster than any zombie they had encountered. Smarter, too. Lisa spun, raising her rifle. She fired a single shot. The bullet pierced the creature's leg, sending it tumbling. "We need to go, now!" she shouted. The team sprinted through the wreckage, vaulting over abandoned cars and broken street signs. Behind them, the mutant let out an enraged screech, already dragging itself back to its feet. And it wasn't alone. From the surrounding ruins, more undead stirred. The gunfire had drawn them. Ethan spotted a parked armored truck near a ruined police station. He pointed. "There!" Derek didn't hesitate. He sprinted ahead, smashing the driver's side window with his shotgun. "Zoe, how are this thing?" Zoe scrambled inside, her fingers flying over the exposed wires. The undead were closing in. The mutant was already leaping onto a nearby car, using it to propel itself toward them. Lisa fired again, hitting it in the shoulder. It barely slowed. "Zoe!" Ethan roared. "I'm working on it!" The truck roared to life just as the first wave of zombies reached them. "Go, go, go!" Ethan shoved Derek into the back as Lisa leaped into the passenger seat. Ethan barely managed to climb in before Zoe hit the gas, the truck tearing through the undead like a battering ram. The mutant lunged, grabbing onto the side of the truck with inhuman strength. Ethan swung his rifle around, but before he could shoot, the creature locked eyes with him, and it grinned. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt true fear. Then, Lisa jammed her knife into its wrist, forcing it to let go. The mutant tumbled onto the road as the truck sped away. But it didn't stay down. It stood up slowly, watching them disappear into the night. And then, it turned and began to follow. A new nightmare begins. Inside the truck, silence fell. Zoe's hands trembled on the wheel. "What the hell was that thing?" Derek muttered. Lisa was breathing hard. Something new. Something worse. Ethan stared at the dark road ahead. The mission had just gotten more complicated. The undead were evolving. And whatever that thing was, it wasn't finished with them yet. They weren't just running from the zombies anymore. Now, something was hunting them. The armored truck roared down the ruined highway, its tires kicking up ash and debris. The team sat in tense silence, their faces illuminated by the dim dashboard lights. Behind them, Fort Haven was nothing but a distant glow of fire and death. Ethan sat in the passenger seat, gripping his rifle as his mind raced. That thing, the mutant, it was unlike anything they had faced before. It had thought. It had grinned. "We need to figure out where we're going," Lisa finally said, breaking the silence. Ethan glanced at the map on the dashboard, its edges curled from age. "Northern Outpost is 300 miles away. But with the undead swarming, it might as well be 3,000. Zoe, still at the wheel, swallowed hard. "We don't have enough fuel for that kind of trip." Derek let out a dry chuckle. "So what, we stop at a gas station and ask the cashier for a top-up?" Ethan ignored him. "There's a survivor settlement about 50 miles ahead, Outpost Gray. If anyone's still alive there, we might find fuel, supplies, maybe even backup." Lisa nodded. "Then we head there." No one argued. But someone in that truck was hiding something. Cracks in the team. Hours passed as they drove through the wasteland, navigating around wrecked highways and abandoned vehicles. The silence in the truck wasn't just exhaustion, it was distrust. Ethan had felt it ever since they left Fort Haven. Someone was compromising them. The mutant had tracked them too easily. And the raiders back at the city? They had known exactly where to find them. Someone in this truck had given away their position. He turned his gaze to the others. Lisa, his sniper, his best soldier, loyal to the end. No chance it was her. Derek, rough around the edges, but a survivor. Would he sell them out for a better deal? Maybe. Zoe, the kid. Smart, nervous, but too inexperienced to be a traitor, right? Ethan pushed the thought away. They had more pressing concerns. Like the dark figure standing in the road ahead. An ambush waiting to happen. Zoe slammed on the brakes. In the truck's headlights, a group of survivors stood in the middle of the road. 5 of them, dressed in scavenge gear, holding weapons. A rusted sign behind them read, Outpost Gray, 2 miles ahead. Derek scoffed. Well, look at that. Some poor soul's still out here playing house. Lisa narrowed her eyes. Something's not right. Ethan felt it too. Weapons up. Keep your eyes open. Zoe rolled down the window slightly as one of the survivors, a man with a scar running down his cheek, stepped forward. You folks look lost, he said, voice rough as sandpaper. You heading to Outpost Gray? Ethan hesitated. We're passing through. Scarface nodded. Good. 'Cause you're not going anywhere else. That's when the first shot rang out. Betrayed. Glass shattered as a bullet tore through the windshield. Ambush! Lisa shouted, returning fire. Zoe floored the gas pedal, sending the truck barreling toward the survivors. They scattered, diving for cover as bullets rained down. Derek pulled open the side door, firing his shotgun at the ambushers. We got company on the rooftops. Ethan caught a glimpse of figures moving above, raiders, hidden in the buildings, waiting for them. This wasn't just an ambush. It was a trap. And someone had led them into it. The truck skidded, swerving to avoid a spiked trap in the road. The tires popped. The vehicle spun out of control, smashing into an abandoned diner. For a moment, everything went dark. Nowhere to run. Ethan groaned as he pushed himself up, blood running down his forehead. Gunfire echoed outside. Lisa and Derek were already on their feet, taking cover behind the wreckage. Zoe was still in the driver's seat, dazed. Ethan grabbed her arm. Zoe! You good? She blinked, her breathing ragged. I think so. Outside, Scarface's voice rang out. You picked the wrong road, soldier! Drop your weapons, and maybe we'll let you live! Ethan wiped the blood from his brow. Like hell. Lisa reloaded her rifle. We can't stay here. We need a way out. Derek peeked around the corner. Looks like these bastards came prepared. They've got snipers on the rooftops, more guys behind cover, and we're pinned in a wrecked truck. Ethan clenched his jaw. Someone set us up. Lisa's expression darkened. Who? Ethan exhaled. We find out after we survive this. Derek grinned, cocking his shotgun. Guess we better make it interesting then. The reveal. As the gunfight raged on, Ethan noticed something strange. Zoe was nervous, more than usual. Her hands trembled as she reloaded, and she kept stealing glances toward the enemy. Then, she did something that sent a chill through Ethan's spine. She reached into her pocket and tapped something on her tablet. And the mutant's howl echoed through the night. Ethan's blood ran cold. It had found them. Lisa turned. What the hell was that? Zoe's face was pale. I don't know. Ethan grabbed her wrist, yanking the tablet from her hands. The screen displayed a GPS tracker, and a signal leading straight to them. Everything clicked. Zoe had been transmitting their location. Ethan's voice was ice. You let it here. Zoe's eyes filled with tears. I didn't have a choice. Before she could explain, a horrific screech silenced them all. On the rooftop, one of the raiders screamed as something leaped onto him, the mutant. It tore into him like a wild animal, sending blood spraying across the pavement. Panic erupted. Scarface shouted, What the? Kill it! Kill it now! The raiders turned their guns on the new threat, but it was too late. The mutant ripped through them with terrifying speed, snapping bones, tearing flesh. It had been following them all along, and now it had arrived. Ethan turned to Zoe, his heart pounding. She had led it straight to them. And now, they were all going to die. Screams filled the air as chaos exploded in the ruined street. The mutant moved like a nightmare-given form, faster, stronger, smarter than any undead they had ever faced. The raiders who had ambushed Ethan's team were now its prey. Ethan clenched his jaw. They had seconds to act. Lisa fired her rifle, hitting a raider who had turned his gun on them. "We need to move!" Derek yanked Zoe by the collar. "Start talking, kid, before I put a bullet in you." I didn't mean for this to happen," Zoe stammered. They told me they'd let us go if I helped." Ethan grabbed her by the shoulders. "Who?" "The Watchers," she blurted. They have my brother. They said if I didn't send our location, they'd kill him." Ethan barely had time to process that before the mutant turned toward them. Its twisted face twitched with something disturbingly human, recognition. Its yellowed eyes locked onto Zoe. Then it charged. Nowhere to hide. Ethan tackled Zoe, shoving her behind a rusted car as the mutant's claws sliced through the air where she had just been standing. Derek blasted his shotgun at it. The shell barely slowed it down. Lisa grabbed Ethan's arm. "We can't kill that thing. We need to fall back." The street was a bloodbath. The remaining raiders were either dead or running, gunned down by their own men in the confusion. Scarface, bleeding from his leg, pointed a pistol at Ethan. "You brought that thing here." "Wrong," Ethan snapped. "She did." He yanked Zoe up. Scarface's eyes burned with fury, but before he could shoot, the mutant lunged. Its claws ripped into him, lifting him off the ground like he weighed nothing. His scream was cut short as the monster bit into his throat, tearing it out. Zoe sobbed. "I didn't know it would come. I didn't know." Ethan had no time for guilt. "Run!" Escape into the underground. The team bolted down a side alley, weaving through the wreckage of the city. The mutant's shriek echoed behind them. It was hunting them now. "There!" Lisa pointed ahead, an old subway station. Ethan kicked open the rusted gate, ushering everyone inside just as the mutant barreled into the alley. Derek slammed the gate shut. "That ain't holding it for long. Down the tunnel!" Ethan ordered. "Move!" They ran into the darkness, the only light coming from Zoe's flickering tablet screen. The sound of metal tearing echoed behind them. The mutant was breaking through the darkest depths. The air in the tunnels was thick with rot and decay. Lisa pulled out a flashlight, her hands steady despite their situation. The beam flickered over old graffiti, crumbling walls, and long-abandoned subway cars. Zoe sniffled. I didn't mean to." Ethan didn't look at her. "We'll talk later." Derek scowled. "If there is a later." A distant snarl made them all freeze. Lisa aimed the flashlight forward. The beam revealed shambling figures emerging from the dark. "Zombies," she whispered. "Not just a few. Dozens." The team backed up, right as the mutant smashed through the gate behind them. Trapped. The only way out is through. The zombies lunged. Ethan opened fire, dropping the first few. Lisa took down another with a precise headshot. Derek swung his shotgun like a club, caving in a skull. Zoe froze in terror. Ethan grabbed her arm. "If you want to live, fight!" She shakily raised her pistol and fired, missing completely. The mutant screeched and charged through the horde, smashing zombies aside just to get to them. Ethan's mind raced. There had to be a way out. Lisa pointed ahead, a collapsed tunnel with a narrow gap. "We can fit through there," Derek snarled. "Yeah? What about that thing?" No time to think. Ethan turned, raised his rifle, and fired. Not at the mutant, at the ceiling. The tunnel shook. "Geo!" he roared. Lisa dragged Zoe through the gap. Derek was next. Ethan waited until the last second, until the mutant was almost on him, then dived through just as the tunnel collapsed. Dust and rock filled the air. Silence. A moment to breathe. They lay there in the darkness, coughing. Lisa turned on the flashlight. The tunnel was blocked. The mutant was on the other side. For now they were safe. Derek groaned. That was too close. Zoe was shaking. I didn't want this. I just wanted to save my brother. Ethan finally turned to her, his voice cold. And now you've almost gotten us all killed. She wiped at her tears. The Watchers said they could stop the zombies. That they had a cure. But I didn't know they were working with. She swallowed. With things like that. Lisa's eyes narrowed. Wait. What do you mean working with? Zoe hesitated. Then, in a whisper. The Watchers didn't just find the mutant. They made it. The horror revealed. The team fell silent. Ethan's pulse pounded in his ears. What are you saying? Zoe's voice shook. The Watchers, they told me the virus wasn't an accident. Derek's face twisted in rage. They made those things. Zoe nodded. They said the zombies were just the first step. Lisa exhaled sharply. And the mutants? Zoe's hands trembled. They're the next evolution. The truth settled over them like a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. Ethan clenched his fists. This wasn't just survival anymore. They had to stop the Watchers. And they had to do it before the whole world became something worse than undead. The tunnel was silent except for the sound of their ragged breathing. Dust still hung in the air from the collapse, but they had no time to rest. Ethan fixed his gaze on Zoe. You knew. His voice was cold, controlled. You knew the Watchers were behind this. Zoe shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. I didn't know everything. They told me they had a way to stop the virus, not that they... She hesitated, swallowing hard. Not that they were creating monsters. Derek let out a bitter laugh. So what? You thought they were the good guys? They blackmailed you, kid. Used you. Zoe wiped at her face. I thought if I did what they wanted, they'd let my brother go. Lisa looked at Ethan. What now? Ethan took a deep breath. The plan had changed. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about stopping this at the source. We find the Watchers, he said. And we burn their operation to the ground. A hidden threat. Navigating the subway tunnels was slow. The deeper they went, the more the walls were coated in something unnatural, thick, black veins pulsing faintly, like they were alive. Lisa frowned. This isn't normal. Derek tapped the growth with the butt of his shotgun. It twitched. Nope. Not normal at all. Zoe whispered. The Watchers, they said the virus was changing. That the zombies weren't the end of it. Ethan's jaw tightened. They were experimenting with something worse. Then the whispers started. Lisa stiffened. Did you hear that? The sound wasn't coming from behind them. It wasn't coming from ahead. It was coming from the walls. Zoe whimpered, clutching her tablet. Something's down here. Derek aimed his shotgun at the darkness. More zombies? Lisa's voice was grim. Worse. Horrors in the dark. From the shadows they emerged. Not zombies. Not mutants. Something in between. Their bodies were twisted, skin stretched too tightly over elongated limbs. Their eyes still held intelligence, but their mouths dripped with hunger. Lisa exhaled. Hell no. The creatures moved too fast. Ethan fired, dropping one. Derek blasted another apart. But they kept coming, skittering along the walls like insects. One lunged at Zoe. She screamed, stumbling back. Ethan shot at midair. Its blood sizzled as it hit the floor. Lisa grabbed Zoe's arm. Run! Desperate escape. They sprinted through the tunnels, gunfire echoing behind them. The creatures were everywhere, crawling from cracks in the walls, dropping from the ceiling. Zoe pointed ahead. There's a maintenance door. We can lock it behind us. Derek reached it first, kicking it open. Move! One of the creatures snagged Lisa's ankle. She gritted her teeth, trying to shake it off. Ethan stabbed his knife into its skull, yanking her free. Go! They slammed the doors shut behind them. The creatures screeched from the other side, clawing at the metal. Derek panted. I hate this. Lisa reloaded her rifle. Welcome to the club. A new destination. The room they had entered was an abandoned security station. Dust-covered monitors lined the walls, flickering with static. Zoe hesitated, then tapped a few buttons on her tablet. The screens came to life. Lisa narrowed her eyes. You can access their system? Zoe nodded. The Watchers sent me encrypted maps. I didn't realize this whole subway system was one of their test sites. Ethan studied the map. Where's their main facility? Zoe's fingers trembled as she zoomed in on a location. A red dot blinked on the screen. 50 miles north. Lisa exhaled. That's a long way through hell. Derek snorted. Wouldn't be the first time. Ethan turned to the others. This is where we end it. They had one mission now. Find the Watchers. Stop their experiments. Save what was left of the world. But they were being watched. As they made their plan, none of them noticed one of the cameras shift. Somewhere, someone was watching them. And they weren't alone in the tunnels. The abandoned security room felt safe, but Ethan knew better. Nowhere was safe. Not in this world. Lisa studied the map Zoe had pulled up. So the Watcher's main facility is 50 miles north? Zoe nodded. It's built into an old military bunker. It's well hidden, but I think I can find a way in. Derek exhaled sharply. Great. And let me guess, crawling with more of those freaks. Ethan slung his rifle over his shoulder. Doesn't matter. We have to go. If the Watchers are making more mutants, we end this before it gets worse. Lisa looked at Zoe. How do we get topside? Zoe hesitated. There's an exit 3 miles from here. But... Ethan's stomach sank. But what? Zoe bit her lip. It's inside the quarantine zone. Silence. Derek scowled. The hell kind of quarantine? Zoe swallowed. It's where the Watchers dumped their failed experiments. Monsters in the dark. The quarantine zone was nothing more than a sealed-off section of the subway, walls reinforced with steel, tunnels blocked with concrete. Whatever the Watchers had trapped down here, they didn't want it getting out. Lisa aimed her flashlight ahead. If it's so dangerous, why is there an exit inside? Zoe's voice was quiet. I think they used to watch the mutations. See how they evolved. Derek snorted. Yeah? And what if they got out? Zoe looked at him grimly. They didn't. A chill crawled down Ethan's spine. The tunnels felt wrong, too silent. Then the smell hit them. Rot. Blood. Something worse than death. Derek gagged. Holy hell. Lisa pointed her rifle at something ahead. There. Ethan followed her gaze, his stomach clenched. Bodies. Dozens of them. But not zombies. Something else. Their skin was blackened, cracked like burnt flesh. Their eyes were sunken, jaws frozen in silent screams. Their limbs were twisted, elongated, like their bones had been broken and reshaped. Zoe whispered. The virus mutated them. Ethan tightened his grip on his rifle. Are they dead? Derek nudged one with his boot. Looks like it. The body twitched. Then they all moved. The failed experiments. The creatures rose as one. Not like zombies. No slow, shambling movements. They moved like hunters. Lisa fired first, a direct headshot. The creature's skull snapped back, then snapped forward again. It didn't die. Derek swore. Screw this. He fired his shotgun, but the blast barely slowed them down. Then they charged. Ethan barely had time to react before one was on him. It tackled him, clawed fingers reaching for his throat. It was strong. Too strong. Lisa fired at its knee. The leg buckled, and Ethan shoved it off, rolling to his feet. Run! He shouted. The team sprinted through the tunnels, the mutants close behind. Zoe pointed ahead. There! That door! Lisa reached it first, slamming her shoulder into the metal. It's locked! Ethan spun, raising his rifle. Buy me time! Derek fired into the horde, forcing them back. Zoe desperately typed on her tablet. I think I can override it, just give me a minute. They didn't have a minute. One of the creatures lunged. Lisa drove her knife into its eye. It shrieked but didn't die. Derek was knocked back, the shotgun ripped from his hands. The mutant was on him, its jaws unhinging, ready to bite. Ethan grabbed his last grenade, shoved it into the creature's mouth, and kicked it away. Get down! The explosion shook the tunnel. Zoe screamed. I got it! The door hissed open, they dove inside. Lisa slammed the controls, sealing it behind them. Silence. A temporary safe haven. They collapsed against the walls, panting. Derek groaned. That was the dumbest thing you've ever done. Ethan smirked. And it worked. Lisa wiped blood from her cheek. What the hell were those things? Zoe hesitated. Then she turned her tablet screen toward them. A Watcher's research log. Lisa read it aloud. Subject type Omega, regeneration successful. Increased cognitive abilities. Hosts show complete resistance to traditional necrosis. However, extreme aggression is uncontrollable. Ethan's fists clenched. They knew. They knew these things couldn't be controlled. Derek shook his head. And they made them anyway. Zoe's voice was quiet. Because they weren't trying to cure the virus. Lisa looked at her sharply. Then what were they doing? Zoe took a deep breath. They were trying to evolve it. The road to war. Ethan felt his stomach sink. It was never about stopping the outbreak. The Watchers were testing weapons. Lisa's expression hardened. Then we end this. The bunker's our target. We destroy everything. Zoe nodded. We need to hurry. If they release another wave of those things. Derek loaded a fresh shell into his shotgun. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. Ethan looked toward the next tunnel. One last stretch to the surface. Then, they take the fight to the Watchers. And burn them to the ground. The tunnel ahead was silent. Too silent. Ethan and his team had been through hell, but the next step was the most dangerous yet, getting topside and heading for the Watchers' bunker. Lisa checked her rifle. So, we're really doing this? Derek snorted. Damn right we are. I didn't come this far just to let some psycho-scientists win. Zoe hesitated. We're up against people who've controlled this virus since day one. They have weapons. Security. And God knows how many more of those things. Ethan tightened his grip on his rifle. Then we don't give them time to react. We hit them fast and hard. Lisa smirked. That's the plan I like. The surface, a city of the dead. The team climbed a rusted maintenance ladder, emerging into a crumbling building. They had made it to the surface. But the city was unrecognizable. Once a thriving metropolis, now it was nothing but ruin. Towers of smoke rose in the distance. The streets were littered with wreckage, cars abandoned mid-crash, bodies slumped over sidewalks, a graveyard of a world that once was. And in the distance? The Watcher's fortress. Lisa pointed. There it is. We just need a way in. Derek grumbled. Yeah, and we need to get there without becoming zombie chow. Zoe scanned her tablet. There's an old military checkpoint 4 miles east. If we can get to it, we might find a vehicle. Ethan nodded. Then we move. Stay quiet. Stay fast. The horde awakens. The team moved through the ruins, avoiding open streets, slipping between alleys and collapsed buildings. But the dead were everywhere. Some shambled mindlessly, their rotting bodies barely held together. Others, the evolved ones, crouched in shadows, their hollow eyes tracking movement. And then there were the Watcher's creations. Ethan spotted one ahead, a type Omega mutant. Its blackened skin pulsed, its fingers ending in razor-sharp claws. Lisa whispered, We can't fight it. Ethan motioned for them to stay low. They moved carefully, slowly. And then a metal can clattered behind them. Zoe froze. Lisa cursed under her breath. The type Omega snapped its head toward them. Then it shrieked. And the horde awoke. The chase. The streets erupted with movement. Zombies spilled from abandoned buildings. Mutants leaped from rooftops. The Type Omega charged. Ethan fired first, his bullet hitting the creature's shoulder. It barely flinched. Derek blasted a zombie in half. Run! They sprinted through the ruins. The horde followed. Lisa shouted, "The checkpoint! We need to make it before." A massive creature crashed through a wall. It was 10 feet tall, its body stitched together from multiple corpses, its eyes glowing with inhuman rage. Zoe screamed. "What the hell is that?" Derek didn't hesitate. He fired a grenade round. The explosion knocked the creature back, but it didn't fall. Ethan shouted, "Split up! We regroup at the checkpoint." They scattered. Reaching the checkpoint, Ethan dodged through alleyways, narrowly avoiding grabbing hands and snapping jaws. He heard gunfire nearby. Lisa and Derek were still fighting. Then he saw it. The checkpoint. It was heavily fortified, once a military outpost. And parked inside? A reinforced truck. Lisa and Derek burst from a side street, panting. Lisa fired over her shoulder. "Zoe?" Ethan cursed. "She's not here." Derek clenched his jaw. "We can't leave her." Then, a scream. Zoe's scream. And it was coming from the mutant-infested street behind them. Zoe's fight for survival. Zoe had taken a wrong turn. She had been cornered in a collapsed store, her back against the rusted counter. The Type Omega mutant that had spotted them earlier was inches away. It tilted its head, studying her. Unlike regular zombies, this one thought. Zoe gripped her knife. She knew it was useless. The mutant lunged. Bang! A shot tore through its skull. Ethan stood in the doorway. "Move!" Zoe bolted. The team fought their way back, covering each other as they ran for the truck. Lisa hotwired it in seconds. Derek jumped in the back, firing as they sped off. Ethan turned to Zoe. "You okay?" She nodded shakily. "Let's just end this." The bunker was close now. One last mission. One final stand. The Watchers are waiting. As they drove toward the bunker, none of them noticed the cameras mounted on the ruins. Watching. Recording. Deep inside the Watchers' fortress, a man in a black coat smirked at the monitors. "The survivors made it." A voice behind him asked. "Do we eliminate them?" The man shook his head. "No. Let them come." He turned to the dozens of creatures standing motionless behind him. "Let's give them a proper welcome." The truck sped down the cracked highway, tires kicking up dust and debris. The Watcher's fortress loomed ahead, a massive, reinforced military bunker built into the ruins of an old research facility. Ethan gripped the wheel tightly. This was it. Lisa loaded her rifle. "We go in, shut them down, and burn every last piece of their research." Derek smirked. "Now that's a plan I can get behind." Zoe tapped furiously on her tablet. "I found blueprints for the facility. The main lab is underground. If we take out the servers, we destroy their entire database." Ethan nodded. "Then we move fast and hit hard. No second chances." As they approached the fortress gates, an eerie silence filled the air. Derek frowned. "Why aren't they stopping us?" Lisa checked the scope of her rifle. "Because they're waiting." And then the gates opened. The Watcher's trap. The truck rolled inside, the team tense. The yard was empty, no guards, no soldiers. Just a long, dark entrance leading into the bunker. Ethan killed the engine. "This doesn't feel right." Zoe gulped. "It's a trap." Derek checked his shotgun. "Yeah? Well, I say we spring it." The team moved in cautiously. Their footsteps echoed in the vast metal corridors. Bright white lights flickered overhead. Then a voice crackled through unseen speakers. "Welcome." The voice was smooth, controlled. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Who the hell is that?" Zoe's tablet beeped. "I think it's him. Dr. Aldrich. The man behind the Watchers." A chuckle echoed through the speakers. "Ah, so you know of me." Impressive. Lisa scowled. We know what you did. Aldrich's voice remained calm. Of course you do. But tell me, have you considered that you're fighting for the wrong side? Derek spat. Oh, here we go. The I did it for humanity speech. Aldrich sighed. You are clinging to a dying world. We are not the villains here. We are the evolutionaries. Zoe whispered. He's stalling. Ethan gritted his teeth. Then let's cut this short. He kicked down the nearest door, and chaos erupted. The war begins. Gunfire tore through the room. Watcher's soldiers were waiting inside, opening fire the second the team entered. Lisa dropped to one knee, firing precise shots, headshots every time. Derek roared, blasting through armored guards with his shotgun. Zoe ducked behind a console, hacking into the bunker's systems. Doors unlocked, security cameras shut down. Ethan moved fast, clearing the way ahead. Zoe shouted, Main lab is down the hall. We need to get to the server room. Then, a new sound. A low, guttural growl. Lisa's eyes widened. That's not a soldier. The hallway darkened. And they came. The ultimate experiment. The Type Omega mutants were waiting. Not just a handful. Dozens. Blackened skin. Eyes that still held intelligence. Bodies reshaped into perfect killing machines. Aldrich's voice returned, smug. You see, you were never meant to win. The Type Omega creatures attacked. Ethan fired, but bullets barely slowed them down. Derek threw a grenade. One mutant caught it midair and tossed it back. Lisa barely dodged as the explosion rocked the hallway. Zoe screamed. We need to move! Ethan's mind raced. They couldn't fight this. He spotted an emergency lockdown switch on the wall. If we can trap them in here. Lisa nodded. Do it! Ethan hit the switch. Metal barriers slammed down. The Type Omega mutants shrieked, pounding against the walls. For now, they were contained. Zoe pulled Ethan forward. Come on! The server room! Destroying the Watchers. The server room was massive, rows of computers humming with data. Zoe plugged in her tablet. I can wipe everything. But I need time. Ethan, Lisa, and Derek held the door as soldiers swarmed in. Lisa shouted, Hurry up, kid! Zoe's fingers flew across the keyboard. The servers began to overload. Aldrich's voice, for the first time, sounded angry. Stop this! You don't understand what you're doing. Ethan smirked. Yeah, we do. Zoe hit the final command. The system shut down. Lights flickered. Alarms blared. A countdown started. Lisa's eyes widened. What's that? Zoe's face went pale. Self-destruct. He's taking the whole base down. The escape. The bunker shook violently. Derek cursed. Move! The team ran as explosions erupted behind them. They dodged falling debris, leapt over corpses. The mutants broke free, screeching as the facility collapsed around them. Ethan spotted an exit hatch. This way! They climbed the ladder, bursting into the night air just as. Boom! The bunker erupted in a fiery explosion. The end of the Watchers. The team lay in the dirt, coughing from the smoke. Derek groaned. Please tell me that son of a bitch Aldrich is dead. Zoe wiped soot from her face. His voice cut out before the explosion. He's either dead or buried. Lisa looked at the burning ruins. Either way, the Watchers are gone. Ethan sat up, watching the flames consume the facility. The virus was still out there. The world was still broken. But they had cut the head off the snake. And now? They would rebuild. Lisa smirked. So, what now? Ethan sighed. Then he stood. We survive. The end.